Welcome, you're listening or watching to the next episode of Whistlekick Martial Arts Radio. And today I'm joined by two great friends of the show, but I'm going to tease, you don't even know who they are. Whoa. Because you might not be watching, you could be listening. And if you're only listening, then you have no idea who's here with me. You're just going to have to wait. But today I'm joined by two great friends, and we're going to talk about teaching and I'm putting non in air quotes, non-martial arts. But before we get into the discussion, I want to make sure that if you're a new listener, you understand all of the things that we here at Whistlekick do. Because we obviously produce this podcast that you're listening to, which, by the way, you got to listen to for nothing. It's completely free. And we are hell-bent. That's right. I said hell. Ooh, maybe I'll bleep that out, and you won't know what I said, but you'll know what I said. On providing so much value to our people that are involved in the show with listening so that you can get all of our content for free. But if you would like to help us out, you certainly can do so by purchasing something at our store, whistlekick.com, where you can purchase sparring gear or apparel or training programs or information on all of the events that we do. And if you use the code podcast15, you can save yourself 15% on almost everything there. We also have a website, whistlekickmartialartsradio.com, where you can find all of the show notes on this episode and all of the other ones and transcripts. In fact, if you're just listening in your car, you couldn't read who the two guests are joining me today. But if you're watching, you know. You can wave, guys. Wave to all the audience.
I did little finger points earlier.
You can't talk now. They know who you are, Craig.
Joke's on them. This is episode, what number?
997.
Yeah, and I've been on 994. So,
lastly, if you do want to help support the show, I would encourage you to do that in a few ways. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, which you can do. If you're watching on YouTube, just hit the like button, subscribe, get the notifications so that you find out when all of our episodes come out. If you are just listening, tell a friend about the episode. Tell a friend about any episode. This is episode 997, so there are 996 other ones that you could share with a friend. And then if you are really so inclined, we would appreciate if you could join our Patreon. Patreon.com/whistlekick. And for as little as $5 a month, which is less than the price of a cup of coffee these days at Starbucks or Dunkin's or wherever, you can help support the show and make the show happen and get some cool stuff in return. All right, I think I'm done. So, Craig, obviously you're one of our two mystery guests. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I am great. I woke up handsome. It's hard to believe, but it happened again.
You're on quite a run of waking up handsome.
I know, it's
I feel
true.
Like it's every day.
It's hard to believe, but sad but true. And then we're also joined today by Victor Garino. Victor, how are you today?
Good morning. Well, I woke up covered in dog hair from the German Shepherd and the other mutt that sleeps with us. But I'm doing great. I dug through my closet to pull out my Irish pub hoodie just so that you and I wouldn't run the risk of matching this morning, Andrew.
Frequent viewers of the show will know that when Victor and I get together, we often both have a very similar style hoodie on. So,
or sometimes the exact same hoodie.
Sometimes the exact same hoodie. That's true. The Kathy Long version of the Whistlekick Dragon hoodie. Today I have a custom 3-color dragon hoodie. This was actually the first 3-color dragon hoodie. Ooh.
And I'm wearing my Whistlekick Star Wars hoodie. Check out whistlekick.com for all apparel.
Except for the Irish pub hoodie. You would have to travel to Florida to do that.
That's not a deal breaker for me.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So we're here today to talk about in quotes, teaching non-martial arts. And, this topic has come up in the past where we've talked about specifically games that we teach in our, at the end of class for kids, and how often, even though they're games, they are still martial related. There are a lot of skills that come out of that. But I know that all of us use other things in our school rather than just teaching punching and kicking and blocking and things like that. And so this idea for an episode came about because, Victor, you have in the past, fairly recently, I've seen a number of them run separate actual, not just I'm teaching a class and I'm going to, we're going to work on dodgeball because we can work on our stances or whatever. Like, you ran separate events that one could absolutely make the argument, well, you're not teaching martial arts. And I thought, you know what, this would be a fun thing to talk about. So let's dive in there. Can you talk a little bit about those events that you ran?
Well, so this past weekend, we ran two. We have an ongoing Dojos and Dragons event, which is a 5-week seminar. We teach every Saturday. Yeah. And we've got 2 weeks left of that. But then on Friday night, this past weekend, we taught we had our kids' night out. And we do kids' nights out, and we generally try to do a theme. And a lot of our students, specifically also Karen and my children, asked us to play The Floor is Hot Lava. So we ran red rope lights all over the dojo. We pulled the green out of some red and green Christmas spotlights that we had. So we just had this red aura around, and we used the mats and stuff. It honestly was the most cost-effective kids' night out we've ever done, because we didn't have to buy anything, except for the rope lights. But we got there at the end of Christmas when they were stupid cheap.
Yep.
On the clearance section. And we just played different obstacle courses. If you've ever watched Wipeout or Ninja Warrior, or there is a show on Netflix called The Floor is Lava, that's just what we did. And we have kids up to 12. Only eight people signed up for it, thank God. Because, man, when 12 people get in on that mat, that's only a little over 800 square feet, is a lot. Karen and I always get like halfway through the night, which is 5 to 8, and we just look at each other and like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this again? Why did we agree? But the kids love it. They absolutely adored everything. We made it through another one with no injuries, knock on wood. The only close one was my own son, and that's fine. He's okay. If one of my kids gets hurt, that's okay, because I know that the parents aren't going to be upset at me. And he ended up fine. He just he almost rolled his ankle. So,
Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, that was what it was. They were just jumping from barriers and pads and things, trying not to touch the ground. And it absolutely translates into martial arts skills.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Like, some people would say, well, and I have heard this of other schools as well. I knew other schools that do like a parents' night out, like kids night in sort of type of event. And the argument that I always see is, well, what, you're just doing a daycare. Like, you're a martial arts school. Why are you running daycare? And I think people miss that there are skills you can still teach that can correlate.
Yeah. And not just skills. I mean, I think I mentioned this in the past. I don't know. I think it was an episode that I was on where we were talking about, teaching different age groups and stuff. But eventually, inevitably, when you do something like an obstacle course, like a Ninja Warriors type thing, a kid is going to fall. And even though mats are squishy, it still doesn't feel the best to fall. But since there's competition there, they learn to fall, hit hard, get back up, and keep going because they want to continue to compete. And with adults, I can tell, teenagers and adults to stand across from each other, throw blocks against each other's forearms, and basically beat on each other's limbs for conditioning. I can't really do that with 6 to 10-year-olds.
Yeah,
I might get in trouble. But you know what else is conditioning? Having them slam their body into a soft mat, right? Mm-hmm. They're still building all of that, conditioning all of their nerve endings, toughening their skin. They are building up their martial arts body, and I'm putting that in quotes because my Sifu always says, this exercise isn't really technique. It's just building your kung fu body. which is necessary to do your technique. And so that's what I view anything where kids are jumping and falling and trying to get back up immediately from falling.
Yeah. Craig, do you have any thoughts? Do you do stuff like that in your school as well?
Yeah, we do stuff all the time. I think, Andrew, I've heard the same thing, right? Well, you're just a daycare that is flavored karate or whatever, right? You're not really teaching martial arts. And I guess my thought on that is my retort is always that it's to build a community. People learn better in a community where they can have fun and feel engaged and connected. And so when you do something like the floor is lava, or one of the events that we've done that stands out with for me is we used to do we did it pre-COVID and we just haven't brought it back yet, but we used to do a Valentine's party for the 4-year-olds, and it was a human-sized Candyland game, pretty much. They had stations, we had people dressed up as characters and things like that, and you could argue, well, that has nothing to do with martial arts, but if you add the martial arts components in, then they're doing their thing. They're having fun decorating cookies maybe with one of the characters, but with the candy cane lumberjack, they're breaking boards that I just so happened to put peppermint oil on, so when they smelled the boards, it smelled like candy canes, right? Like, you can still make it fun and exciting and engaging. And I don't think that if you just stand in a uniform and punch and kick all the time, that makes you a more legitimate martial arts school than anybody else.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think the other thing to keep in mind is, depending on the age we're talking about, like Craig, you just mentioned 4-year-olds, right? I know 6-year-olds that don't know how to skip, as an example. Like, they've just not learned how to skip. They don't understand how their bodies work. And so just working with them on some of those skills of jumping and moving and getting their bodies to go in ways that they're not used to will help them in the future, regardless of whether they're going to continue in martial arts for the rest of their life, or whether they're going to go on to go play sports, or whether they go on to go play even a musical instrument. Like, all of that stuff translates to life skills, right?
Right.
I think it's interesting because it's kind of, we run a toddler and me class too, and yeah, I mean, a traditional martial artist would walk in and see what my wife is teaching there, because I just move bags around. I've taught toddler and me once. There was a lot of prayer and hopefulness because she was sick and I didn't know what to do. And of course, everybody showed up, and I never want to teach toddler and me by myself again. So I just show up and help her move the bags. It's her gifting, not mine. But they'd walk in and see, this isn't martial arts. And I even had one of the grandmothers, because sometimes it's on a Saturday, so sometimes other family members come and watch, and we encourage that because, like you said, Craig, community, right? Yes. God forbid we build community and not just learn how to fight. She like made this revelation. She goes, so you're just really like instilling life skills that are applicable, like balance and coordination. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to teach an 18-month-old how to do an arm bar. Like, what did you think you were coming to? And I think it frustrates me to hear when people, because it's normally just other martial artists who accuse people like myself, people like Craig, who run these programs, of just being a daycare. But they don't think, like, okay, I don't know a single high school that has a good football program that doesn't have a homecoming dance. Nobody's walking into a homecoming dance and be like, what does dancing have to do with football? This is stupid. Right? But what is it? It's a community event to celebrate football and like to celebrate the team. But for some reason in the martial arts community, there seems to be this thing where it has to be in uniform, which were really just the plain clothes of where a lot of these people come from. It wasn't even a uniform. Yeah. And we attack each other because we somehow feel like if there's a martial arts school that is having more fun than us, it somehow makes us less legitimate or them more legitimate.
Yeah, yeah. That's that the point of the football and homecoming dance is interesting and so appropriate, I think, because you're right. Often that homecoming dance or homecoming weekend or whatever is to celebrate the football team or some game. Maybe it's a rivalry between one school or another, right? But the dance has nothing to do with football. So that's an interesting analogy. I like that.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
To carry that analogy further, there are kids at the high school who have no interest in playing football, but they're still connected to the event because they're in marching bands, maybe.
Yep.
Right? Like there's ways to connect kids with other passion or other things into that event too, where it becomes a unifying event. And I think that that's important because one of the things that I always try to keep in the forefront of my mind when I'm teaching is martial arts is my passion. That doesn't mean it's the kids' passion. Right? The kids are still learning and developing their passion. They're growing, or even the teenagers, even adults, right? And martial arts may be something they do that they enjoy, but it might not be the thing they're thinking about 24/7. They get up on a Sunday morning to talk about with their best friends. Like that's not, see, that was a specific example, boys. But it's not their passion per se. But if you can do something and bring in an event where you tie that passion in, Victor, I'm going to guess your Dojos and Dragons, you've got some people in your school who like Dungeons and Dragons. And so you've given them the opportunity to express a passion and a joy and share it with other people they may train with that they may not have had the opportunity to do otherwise.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you said that, Craig, because I was going to also kind of make this point as well with that. Because Dojos and Dragons, and we've also done a Space Katana thing. Those are our kids' night out events for teenagers and adults. We don't take anybody. I take personal issue. This is just a preference. So if you do this differently than me, that's fine. Whoever's listening to this, I don't really want to teach anyone under the age of 14 how to knife fight. It's just kind of like I feel passionate about it, right?
Yep.
So there's an age limit on that. But teenagers are taught by all these other sources that they're not allowed to have fun. They have to be cool. And if you're having too much fun doing silly things,
you're a kid.
You're a kid. And so I've got some teenagers who have come to this Dojos and Dragons and the past one who are literally who are showing up to my Dojos and Dragons with grown adults who come in costume every single week, and they're awesome people. We have 4 professional stunt women who are currently taking our Dojos and Dragons class, and this is the cool thing about the community building of these special events is that these 4 women aren't students. They are in orbit around myself and Karen and our school. They're very busy. They don't necessarily have the time to commit to continuously coming to that, or we teach combat for combat purposes, not necessarily stuff that would look good on screen. So our skill set in our traditional classes doesn't really build into their career like some other things would do, but they show up for this for these specific one-off events or week-long events, and without joining the school, they have become familiar faces to our students. And our students light up when they get to interact. Oh, hey, it's like seeing a cousin that you only get to see every so often, like at a family reunion or a family gathering, because they live far away.
So you are building that community,
right?
That
and
Craig
we're
talked
building
about.
it beyond the walls of our dojo.
That's great. Now, Craig, I know that you teach other things as well. Like it's not just like Parents' Night Out, like other quote non-martial art things that translate to other people's lives. And so let's chat. Let's move away from a little bit of like a themed event, which Victor, we've talked about, and I think held a lot of benefits. But let's talk about some other skills and things that we might teach that are not considered martial arts but really are.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I do that's probably, I think, a fair amount of people who know me know I do this. But and if you've ever taken a Matic course, you know that I do this. I make my students stand up and read poetry or recite poetry to their classmates. Everybody is sitting and watching them. They stand up, they read whatever poem I hand them, and I ask them to perform the poem. I don't ask them to sit there and read it. And the biggest reason for that is because if I took a poll in my class and I said, what is the thing at school that freaks you out the most? It's speaking in front of the class.
Mm-hmm.
Or the other one I do that's pretty popular, I do it a couple times a year, is we do a lip sync battle, right? And we'll just do it in class. Like, I'll just say, pick a song, and they'll go back and forth. And the idea, again, is you've got a room of people watching you, and your job is to have fun. Your job is to break out of that, I'm nervous to look like a fool.
Yep.
Right? Uncle Tommy, one time we were talking, Tommy Gibbons been on the show a bunch, and he said to me, one of the most dangerous people in the world is the person who can't be embarrassed because they're powerful. And that lesson is that's why I do that, because we expect our students as martial artists to face a conflict or a physical altercation and be fearless and go and do what they need to do. Mm-hmm. But in their everyday life, we don't. My opinion has been, and I've said on the show numerous times, statistically, a majority of our students are never going to get into a physical altercation. But 100% of our students are going to face a stressor, like maybe a job interview or college applications or a conflict with a friend or a family member. And so learning the social side of self-defense is important. Mm-hmm. And I think that you don't get that if all you're doing is standing up and performing a kata in front of a group. Yes, that's a valuable thing. That's a valuable skill. And it's doing the same thing. But there's a safety net because everybody's learning that kata or has learned it. Mm-hmm. So you're still in the culture of your school, which every time I'm in an episode, I feel like culture of your school, it pops up at some point, right? But in the culture of your school, performing a kata is normal. It's mm-hmm. not against the norm, right? You're just a bunch of fish swimming the same way. When you stand up and recite poetry, you start swimming the other way.
Yeah. And I think, let's face it, speaking in front of people is probably the biggest thing that brings nerves to adults. Like you mentioned, you asked your kids, what's the thing you struggle with the most at school? It's, getting up in front of your class. That's the same for adults.
Right.
It's no different, Victor, do you have any thoughts on that? I saw you nodding along and
Yeah, it's a really interesting idea. I do some similar things, but I like the fact that it's a seemingly completely disconnected from martial arts in the sense of you don't read poetry as a technique, but I'll do things where I'll ask students who aren't necessarily quote unquote of teaching rank, hey, can you go show the class this thing? And then I'll just walk away and pretend to do something important on my computer. So if any of my students that I've done this before happen to listen to this episode, yes, surprise. I am not completely turning my back on you. I am listening to what you're doing. I'm just making you feel like I'm not hovering over you because I want to see what you do. But even it's funny that, Craig, you mentioned the safety net of kata, because a lot of times I guess I don't think of it as that, because it is a set moves that you have given them that this is supposed to be. But yesterday, because we're recording this on a Sunday, so we just taught Dojos and Dragons last night, we had everybody paired up and I went through here's how you choreograph a fight, moving slow, one move at a time. I'm going to do this attack. You're going to counter. Okay, rewind. Now I do this attack, you do your counter, what's my response? And just teaching them how to build a fight, and I let them go for 15 minutes. And they didn't know that they were going to build a fight that I was going to then make them present to the rest of the class at the end of 15 minutes. And I had two of my students were working with each other, and they're students who have been with me almost the longest, have worked with each other all the time in class. They're very comfortable with each other. And I was like, I'll make them go first. And so I was like, right, you guys, show us what you got. And there was one of them is a teenager, one of them is an adult. The teenager just got like that look on her face, like, I'm sorry, what? You want me to present to all of these people this thing I created that's not something that you gave me? And the adult was just like, no. And I was like, you can't say no to me. Do it. We're all going to do it. But, you go first. And they did. But it was just funny to watch them not feel the safety of, like, if I had asked them, do the sequence that I just taught you at the beginning of the class that we've been running, that what it's supposed to look like, they would have done it without problem.
Yeah.
But because it was do this thing that none of us have seen before that may or may not be correct, all of a sudden I felt I felt the realness of their anxiety. There it is. It was palpable in the air. That was the word I was looking for.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. And, we often correlate the martial arts stuff that we do, how it relates to your life outside. Like I've heard people say, teaching, a loud ki or ki up or whatever, like can help you in your real life if you're attacked, being vocal, right? If you're a smaller, person that's not used to yelling for help, like I've heard that analogy. Or, learning how to fall properly, right? We use that in martial arts all the time, but you also can use that in your real life where you slip and fall and you can fall, quote, properly in a way that you are less likely to injure yourself. So I really enjoy looking at it from the other side where you're teaching things that aren't martial arts, in quotes, but it actually is helping you in your martial arts. And so this has been really fun. I did think of one other benefit so I want to go backwards. We're going to backpedal a little bit to talk about these themed events that you run, Victor, because I thought of another benefit to it that we didn't talk about, not martial arts related, but definitely school related, is that you are not offering a, quote, martial arts class, right? You're offering a Dojos and Dragons class or an Assassin's Creed, video game class, right? But it's not a martial art, in air quotes, class. So you have the ability to potentially bring in new students that are not already a part of your organization, of your group. They're not already students of yours, right? You might have someone that just wants to register to be a part of this event, that you might be able to convert them to a student. But how do you handle that type of a situation where you have someone coming in that's not a normally part of this, your school?
Yeah, it's interesting because the Kids Night Out events are usually mostly dominated at our students. Our students get really excited about it, and we bring in maybe like a couple friends will show up, but we normally don't get any conversions from that. It's more of a community building thing. Whereas Karen and I have had not a hard time, but it's slower to get adults to fill out our teen adult class because adults feel like I can't, it's too late for me. God, I would not need to run extra programs in my school if I got paid for every single time I've heard an adult say, I've always wanted to do martial arts when I was younger, but it's too late for me now. And I'm like, it's really not. My mom started a couple years ago. She's got her yellow belt. Like, you could start any time.
The other one I got a yellow belt when I was like 8.
Right. So, continue that. But anyway, so we were like, well, how do we get adults to do this thing? And we tried running specials, we tried things like that. And I was like, what do adults want to do? Well, adults want to have fun on a Friday night. They want to have a fun on Saturday night. So I was like, let's give them something fun to do that's low commitment. They can show up for this thing, they could come. And then we generally offer them, like right now, all of the Dojos and Dragons folks who aren't students, because our current students, they got a discount for signing up for it. But all of the non-students, if they sign up as a student, they get a discounted first month plus other freebies that they can get if they sign up before the end of the 5 weeks. And, it's kind of like getting paid to market to a specific demographic of people, which is the best way to market. Because if nobody converts, which we've generally had one conversion, or like these stunt people who they did the last themed event thing, they definitely did this themed event thing. They didn't sign up for classes, but they're like, keep us on the email list because we want to know the next one. Per event. But even if we get no conversions, the event still profits us financially as a school, and also as another kind of as that community building thing. And so the difficult thing is everything that leads up to the night, everything that leads up to us getting these non-martial arts people who aren't connected to our dojo really into our system, and not wasting the first class with getting everybody's information when they just show up. And so one of the ways honestly, we use Martialytics, which we've mentioned on the show before, has this thing called a one-touch sign-up. And it's just a QR code, or it can be an email link that is in everything that we do, all of the advertisements for everything. When we have a slideshow on a screen in front of our dojo that faces the walkway, so even when we're not there, people are like, ooh, I want to do that. They can scan the QR code and it brings up a form, and I wake up to an email that says so-and-so signed up for this thing, and here's all their information, and here is their payment. They've already paid for the event, and all I have to do is try to recognize them from the picture, if they upload one, when they walk through the door, and greet them and introduce myself the first time. Obviously, they get an email, which I have set up automations. Finally, that was on me. Martialytics has this great thing where, like, if someone uses a one-touch sign-up, it can automatically trigger a welcome email. And
nice.
Because I like to do everything the hard way, just now set mine up. So before now, everyone would sign up, and I would wake up to the email, like, oh, I gotta sign in, and I gotta craft a welcome email for them, because
but they've automated it for you,
right? And it was automated from the beginning.
Yeah
Always. It's just I like to be difficult.
Well, I mean, and you're fairly new at getting involved with Martialytics. It's a few months.
Yeah. We've probably crossed our 6-month mark at this point with them, and they are amazing. Like, there are things that I have time to do now that I didn't before, because I was doing attendance on an Excel spreadsheet. I was doing my budget and my books on an Excel spreadsheet. And now I can look at things and I can see. I don't have to chase people for waivers, because that one-touch sign-up, it lets them look on their phone, and almost everybody's got a smartphone with a touch screen. They can sign their waiver right then and there, and it comes straight to me. If they somehow get past it without signing a waiver, I can shoot them a waiver through their email, and they can just do it. So their one-touch sign-up has really made events like this more possible for us, because everything leading up to when I get to show up in costume and be, Kale the Shadow Step Moreau and teach my knife fighting, that's the fun part. Everything leading up to it is the stressful part, and Karen and I always stress, and Jeremy yells at us for this. We stress whenever we run these things because we're like, what if we get there and nobody signed up?
Mm-hmm.
Or it's just our 2 students. But without fail, when we run these types of events like the Space Katana in the past and this, right before stuff goes up, all of a sudden we'll fill up in a single day. Yeah. Because someone inevitably, and this is the cool thing about that one-touch sign-up thing that Martialytics does, is that, and it happened with the stunt people, is our friend who already signed up was like, oh, I went ahead and forwarded the sign-up link to all of the people in our stunt crew. Yep. Look out for them. And sure enough, by the end of that day, 3 people had signed up. And then a 4th person signed up later on that night that we had no idea who they were. Well, they were loosely connected to one of the stunt women. He's not a stunt performer himself, but he knows one of them, and she forwarded to his parents, who signed him up as a Christmas gift. And so it just makes the signups prolific. And I don't really have to do anything because it works like Facebook's organic reach used to work.
Yep. Yeah. So Martialytics is really making it a lot easier for you to be able to get your event in the eyes and hands of potential students, which is awesome. And Martialytics has a trial program that they are gifting some extra stuff to Whistlekick listeners. So tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll wrap up here.
Yeah, if you go to Whistlekick Martial Arts Radio.com and you click on our partners page, you'll find the link for Martialytics. And if you click sign up from that page instead of your 60 or your 30-day free trial, you'll get a 60-day free trial. And Alan and Brad are great in the sense of, if you have any questions, every time I've had a question, I've emailed one of them and gotten a response back. Within 24 hours, I will say that it is usually within the same day. If you have all of your students, again, I am hard-headed and I like to do everything myself. So when we first transferred over, I input all of my student information in myself, but we only had like 19 students at the time. If you have, they say, already students in an Excel spreadsheet, or if you're using something else and you export your student list, you can send it to them and they do not charge you for this service. They will input the student data in for you. And then all you have to do is send the first invoices out so that they can collect the financial information via a secure method.
Perfect.
Into their thing.
Awesome.
They really make it easy. But again, whistlekickmartialartsradio.com/partners. Click on the trial link from there. It's a big old button. You can't really miss it. And it'll say 30 days, but really, if you go through our button, you'll get flagged as us and you'll get 60 days free.
Awesome. Craig, anything we want to close out on? We want to finish up on anything we haven't talked about in regards to teaching non-martial arts?
Yeah, I just want to add one point. And my stuff that I do most of the time is in class. And then I do those extra events like Victor does, the parents' night outs or whatever. But if you're a martial arts instructor and you're going, I don't really want to add a Saturday night to my schedule. I taught all week. I'm exhausted. Or maybe, you've got a family, like whatever, that doesn't do martial arts, whatever. Then you can also always empower other people at your school. So, for example, I didn't talk a lot about the parents' night outs we do. I don't do them. There's somebody else on my team who does them because he likes doing them.
Yeah.
Right? I don't have as much fun doing them as he does. So, don't be afraid. If you're an instructor and you have adults in your school or, senior members of your school, ask if it seems like something they'd be interested in, ask them, because all that does is give them the opportunity to share something they like in a place they feel comfortable. The analogy that I always keep, going back to with my team is we often say martial arts is a family. The karate school is a family. The taekwondo school is a family, whatever it is. Well, by extension, that means that your school is the house or the home.
Mm-hmm.
And so providing a place where people can feel empowered to be themselves and share their passion, and on top of that, always have something going on that they want to be a part of, it increases that. So I would encourage people to try their best to find, I'm going to find it, I'm going to word it a little bit different, a non-traditional way to teach traditional martial arts.
Yeah. Victor, anything else to add?
No, I think Craig said it great, and actually he just gave me an idea. I've got a teenager in the intermediate ranks right now who her dad made the mistake of telling me that she wants to work with kids when she gets older, and now I'm just thinking of ways that I can start utilizing her for our kids' nights out so that when she turns 18, I can just hand it to her.
Hey, that's a specialty of mine. We'll talk.
Yeah, thank you. This is a good idea. I'm going to be texting my wife as soon as we finish recording this.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for joining us, guys. If you, the audience listening, have ideas on things you do, maybe you run an event at your school or teach a certain thing that is not considered martial arts, but absolutely is adjacent that will help your students, let us know. You can comment on our YouTube video, which if you're watching on YouTube, hopefully you've already clicked the like button and the subscribe button and the notifications button. Hopefully you've already done that. When you're done that, comment, tell us about what you do in your school or what your school does. Maybe you don't do it. Maybe you're a student. What skills have you learned that have translated to other aspects of your life? Or if you are on Facebook, you can join our Facebook page, which is called Just Martial Arts Radio. And you can let us know there. You can always email me, andrew@whistlekick.com, if you have any questions. Check out whistlekickmartialartsradio.com for everything that the podcast is about. You can also check out the partners page and get an extra 30-day trial on Martialytics, which is great. We appreciate them giving that to all of our listeners. And whistlekick.com is where you go to find everything else that we do using the code podcast15. Save yourself 15%. And I think that's going to close it out, guys. Let's try this all together. Ready? Until next time, train hard, smile, and have a great day.